Us to come back and speak. We have been doing the mobile home rental business for about probably 18 years, and we had stick-built houses before and had mortgages on them, and when the market crashed back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was hard to rent things, and so we basically got out of the rental business, got rid of all of our properties and got out of the rental business. And so we were out for several years, and I mentioned to my husband one time about getting back into it, and he was, no, we're not doing any more rental business. But we had a friend who told us about the mobile homes, and we started investing in the mobile homes just one by one. We originally bought the mobile homes in the mobile home parks because it was easy to get in, less money. You don't have to buy a lot. You don't have to do anything to get it ready for the mobile home. You just buy it and start renting it. And so that's how we got started. And we bought several in mobile home parks, and some mobile home parks will let you rent properties in there to tenants, and some are just homeowners. And so we found the ones that would allow you to buy in the park and rent, and so that's how we got started with the mobile homes. It's kind of like when you are going to start a new business, you rent property, rent a building, and see how it's going to like you and how you're going to like it. And so buying the mobile homes, and you can find some really good bargains in the mobile home parks, because most people that live in mobile homes, when they get ready to do something different, they generally don't have the funds to move the mobile home because it can be costly. It can cost several $1,000s to get it moved, and they just don't have it. And so you can find some pretty good deals in the mobile home parks to purchase. And so that's how we got started. And we bought a few along, and then we realized that we were tired of paying lot rent, because a portion of our rent every month was going to pay lot rent. And so we began to look for empty lots that we could buy. You could still buy the mobile homes very inexpensively in the mobile home parks, and then they just have them moved onto a lot. And so then we started moving the mobile homes out of the parks onto private lots. And it's kind of difficult sometimes to find lots that would allow a mobile home. And unlike Dolores, she has pretty much all double wides. We have bought pretty much all single wides. We have one double wide, but for the most they're single wides. And we rent them on an average of about $800 a month. They're just 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single wide mobile homes. But we make them very nice. They're very clean, in very nice condition. And when we very rarely have any repairs to make during the time that tenants are living there, because we try to keep them in good repair. But when someone moves out, then we go in and go through them and make sure that faucets aren't dripping, the toilets aren't leaking, and nothing's leaking underneath the sinks and whatnot. And some people are a little afraid of mobile homes because they think they don't hold their value, and they take a lot more repairs than a stick-built house. But that's not really the case. We don't buy really old mobile homes, but we don't buy really new ones either. We're kind of in the middle. And if you keep the repairs up on them, the biggest repair problem would be a leaky roof, because they tend to have roof leaks along the edges, or if a limb falls in, because a lot of them are just they're not metal roofs, they're just like tin roofs. And so, but most of ours have the tin roofs. We just keep them mopped and keep the stuff along the edges of them to keep them where they don't leak. And then they leak underneath the sinks where the stuff leaks, plumbing and whatnot. And so if you kind of keep a handle on that and don't let the floors rot, they're really not really much more upkeep than a regular home. But the kicker is you can get a return on your money. And some of them we get in 24 months, we get all of our money back. Some of them up to 4 years, you get all your money back. And then it's just lagniappe. There's just the return that you get is just endless, because they're so expensive. And some people wonder, well, you don't have any equity building up, but I don't care, because for what I pay for them and the return that I get out of them, I don't care when I get ready to sell them if I get $1 for them. I've really made my money all along the way instead of waiting till the end and sell them. And mobile homes are becoming, more and more people are willing to live in mobile homes, because they're a lot of the older homes, they're the electrical is inadequate in them, and the floor plans are funky, and just, you know, a lot of things. But mobile homes in general are pretty modern, and they rent easily, especially if you keep them in good repair. And ours rent really pretty quickly when they go empty. We just, like I said, try to keep them up along the way, and that's.
Where do you own homes at? Where do you have them at?
We have some in the Blanchard area. We have some out in West Shreveport. We have them, where else do we have them? Blanchard and West Shreveport. We have about 15. We keep about 15. We sell them, usually the ones that we've had early on, we'll fix those up and sell them. And most of the ones that we have sold, we actually sell them for more than we pay for them because we keep them up. And so we generally keep about 15. We like to travel a lot, and we do a lot of the repairs ourselves, or have in the past. We're kind of getting to the point that we're not wanting to do as much of that, but and I would like maybe some input from y'all. It's hard to find people to work on things that will do it right for a reasonable price, and so have become real handy. There's just not hardly about anything that we won't work on or fix, and so
how do you finance them? Do you pay for them?
We just pay for them up front. Yeah, just pay for them up front. We don't want any mortgages. You know, before, when we had a lot of rent houses, I think my husband actually had about 40 when we got married. And then the market shifted, and you know, years ago it was leverage, and so you have these mortgages, and then when you can't rent them, or you can't rent them for as much as the mortgage, then you get in trouble. And so we decided this time that if the market crashes, we'll just lower our rents and just keep right on trucking, because we don't have any notes to have to maintain. So we are both licensed realtors. He's a broker and I'm an agent, and so we have our own company, just us two. Trying to keep headaches down, and so we don't have any agents, or you know, we kind of keep it small, and so we do that along with our rental business. And but like I said, we like to travel, so we really don't want any more than that, because it can be a headache. So.
Y'all have mobile home parks?
No. We looked at doing mobile home parks to start with, but if you get a decent mobile home park, you can go one of two ways. You can either buy one that's tremendously run down, and it's a lot of work to get it back up going where it needs to be, and if you buy one that's in good repair. We just did not want to go into that kind of debt. It just was not worth it to us, and so we just decided to do single properties, and so they're kind of sprinkled around. And you know, if you have a storm come through, you're not wiped out because you got everything all in one spot. So it's worked really well for us just to go that route.
I was wondering how that works, because the city of Shreveport now has rules where you cannot add mobile homes.
Well, it's hard to find properties. The last one that we had rezoned to put a mobile home in, the lady up at the zoning actually told us that she thought we would probably be the last rezoning for a mobile home, that they were in the process of changing the zoning. So unless it's a mobile home area, they will not let you put a mobile home in there. So that zoning has changed, or was in the process of changing. I'm not sure it's completely changed yet, but that was her thoughts at that time.
When was the last time that was?
It's been about a year.
Year or so?
Yeah, since we had one rezoned. Yeah.
So if you found an empty lot, you wanted to put a mobile home, the zoning ordinances are completely different, or they won't even let you?
Yeah, there has to be basically a mobile home. My understanding is it has to be a mobile home subdivision in order to put mobile homes in there. So, and there's some areas that even, like we have some mobile homes out in the Lakeview subdivision out there off Cross Lake area, and we put some mobile homes in there, and because it was outside the city limit, this was years ago, we didn't think we had to get any zoning for it because they were there already, all in there, but they made us move them out. Neighbors complained, yes, the neighbors complained, and we had to relocate them to another spot. Now we now have a double wide. We had two lots, we had them side by side. We put a double wide in there, and there was no problem with the double wide, but single wides, they would not allow, and there were probably half the neighborhood was full of single wide mobile homes. So it's, yeah.
Grandfathered in.
Yeah.
I suppose. And you know, you can move them in if nobody complains and nobody says anything. I think there's about a 5-year time frame if you have them in there for 5 years and nobody gripes or complains. So they say you can leave them in there. I have not pushed that issue, and since I've had to move to that I didn't want to move, I would not do that again. But take that chance. But, and you know, mobile homes in general have a bad stigma because a lot of times people don't take care of them, and I think that was part of the issue there in the Lakeview subdivision. There was quite a few in there that had not been maintained through the years, and you know, we keep pretty strict policies about, you know, no outside storage. You know, they have to mow their grass, but if they don't get it mowed, we'll send somebody over to mow it and charge them. I mean, you have to keep them up and make them look nice in order for people to want to live in them. And I found that the better tenants, the better you keep it, the better tenants you get. You know, if you got a trashy spot, you're going to get trashy people, and they're just not going to take care, and they're not going to pay right. So. And I like your idea, Dolores, about direct deposit, but most of our tenants, we're in a different class of renters than what you're renting to. Like I said, most of ours, our average is about $800 a month is what ours rent for. And a lot of them don't have checking accounts. They're just, you know, working just month to month type people. And of course, we do a year's lease, and we've really not had very much problem with people not paying their rent, because I school them pretty good up front about the late rent and no rent. And some landlords will let you go 2 and 3 months and be behind, but the first month, if they're late, we send them a notice, and if they don't pay, they get evicted. So, and people think that's harsh sometimes, but you know, if you give people an inch, a lot of times they'll take a mile. So yeah, you have to just make your policies and stick with them. And you're less likely to get in trouble that way, because if you do this person this way and this person another way, you can be told for being unfair. So. Works pretty well, yeah.
Any more questions?
About how old are the mobile homes that you buy? You said not new, but not
Mm-hmm.
old. Do you have sort of a time frame on age?
Not really. It just depends on the condition of them when we buy it. We just bought a property last year. It was actually already on a piece of property, and it was like a repo kind of property, and it had holes all in the floors where the faucets underneath had been leaking and showers leaking, and we probably repaired 10 or 12 spots in the floor. And it was like probably about an 87 model house, but it had a metal roof over it, and it had nice siding on it, and so and had high roofs. It was, you know, some of them that are that old, they're just, the floor plans are not good, or the ceilings are low, and so it just really depends on the house itself. But this was like an 87 model house, and I hate to even tell you what we paid for it, but we got the land and the house and all for like $11,000. And so if you go in and put 20 in it, you have a wonderful rental piece of property, and it'll sit and pump for many, many, many years. So,
And you
yeah.
can rent it for what?
That one's probably going to rent for about probably $875, maybe $9.25, somewhere in that range, and it's just a single wide mobile home. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You open to buy more?
Sure. Yeah.
What's the average cost to move one?
To move a single wide, it costs you about probably $2,500, $3,000, depending on where you move it to, but usually around that range. Now you have to skirt it, you know, once you get it there, and you have to get it hooked up to the electrical and the plumbing and that type thing. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yes.
So we walked one recently, but it was really not good. But how do you know, like, the borderline between, because I know I talked to someone who had put new floors in their mobile home, and they had said that, I said, so is it just like new plywood and floors? Because this house I looked at had holes all over it and water damage in the floor. And this person said, no, it's joist and it's all this, like, how do you know how much
The damage is?
when it comes to floors?
Yeah. Well, generally, some of the older mobile homes, or most of the real older mobile homes, have particle board floor in them. Mobile homes probably built in the early 90s, they probably started about then putting plywood floors in them, and so they don't rot near as bad. The one that we bought out there was, it had the particle board floors in it. But generally, unless it's just been leaking for years and years and years, it's just the flooring, the subfloor that you just cut out. And we've done so many of them, we can do them in our sleep. And you just, you know, you have to put the right lumber around in it to give it supports, because you're cutting out where like a 4x8 sheet was, you're cutting maybe a 2x2 or a 2x3 spot out of it. So it has to be shored up around and done right. But I don't know that we've ever replaced any joist in a mobile home. Yeah. So you just have to walk, and you can go underneath them. They have belly board underneath them. It's like a it's like a belly board, but it's like a plastic kind of material. And if you open up the skirting and crawl underneath them, you can see if there's been work done underneath it, because that plastic paper board has been cut open. And you can see right where plumbing work, and usually it's always in a bathroom or kitchen, because that's what leaks the floors, it messes the floors up, is the plumbing.
What about black mold? People say in trailers it has a tendency to really move up into the walls and stuff. A lot of that, not too much.
And we have replaced, like I said, this one that we bought had, it probably had a dozen places with a floor, and it had been on the market a while. And as soon as I walked in, and I'm like, oh, that smell, it's money every time. It's just, it is. Because the worse they are, and they're easy to work on. They really are easy to work on and make repairs to them. They're pretty simple. And once you do it a few times, we've really never bought one that was in that kind of condition. I mean, we've bought a lot of rotted floors, but never had any joist to have to replace. Because it usually just kind of wicks and spreads out. And where it started out this big, it wicks, and you might have to cut out this big of a floor because it's been leaking for 2 years versus if it got caught early on. Yeah.
Insurance a little higher on mobile homes?
It is a little bit higher, but you're insuring for so much less. I can buy probably a $65,000 house and rent it for maybe $650 a month. Or I can buy a mobile home, whether I buy it just itself and move it on a piece of property, or if I can find one, I like to find them just already on a piece of property and just make the repairs, but those are hard to find. Usually you have to buy it and move it in somewhere. But when you get through, if you got $35,000 or $40,000 in it, it's just the difference in what you can rent them for versus paying $65,000 for a house, and people want to rent where they feel safe. And if you buy a stick-built house, and $65,000 probably is a low end of what you could spend to buy one to rent out. So when you consider having insurance on something that's $30,000 or $35,000 versus insurance something that's higher, and the taxes are dirt cheap, and taxes go down every year because they depreciate. And I don't care if they depreciate them down to nothing. They still rent for $800 a month, so I don't care. So it's they really are cash cows. Insurance is cheaper on a whole. It's cheaper because you're not having to insure a $70,000 house.
What does the rent normally go for? The rent for the
In the parks,
parks. You have them in the parks.
I still have a couple in a park, yes. And my rent right now is $288 a month.
Wow.
And I think that might be on the lower end of the rental. So, probably three and a quarter, somewhere along in there. I'm sure maybe some of them pay.
Do they pay the lot rent, or
I take that out of the rent. That's why I want to get them out of the parks, because if I have to give somebody $300 of my $800, I only got $5 left versus having the whole $8. Minus my taxes and insurance.
What is the average size of the lots you put them on?
The smaller, the better. Because tenants have a hard time mowing the grass. If you put them on an acre lot, they love it when they come rent it because they think, oh, I got all this space. But when it gets time to keep the grass mowed, they don't want to keep it mowed because it's too much to take care of. So really, as far as I'm concerned, the smaller, the better. Yeah.
So you find places outside city limits?
If I can, however, I like city water and sewer. So it's kind of a fine line.
If there's an ordinance, how does that work?
Well, I've not actually bought any since the ordinance has changed, and I don't know if it has totally changed. I just know that they were in the process of talking about changing it the last time we did one. So, but in some places we have them, like out at Blanchard, it's like a community water type thing. It's not well or septic. I don't like getting into that because then you got tenants that put stuff down the drain they shouldn't, and it messes things up. And so the more you can keep it city utilities, the better you are.
I've heard they're very difficult to finance through a mortgage company.
Well, single wides are, yes.
A realtor, do you?
Well, single wides are almost impossible. That's why people almost get desperate really when they have them, because nobody can buy them and finance them. And so they just, keep basically coming down on the price. And if you pay cash for them, you can pick them up. That's why you can pick them up at such reasonable prices. There's a tag on mobile homes, and I think they have to be like 70, I think maybe 78 or 79 or newer. And of course, we don't buy any that old. Most of ours are in the late 80s or early 90s, and we have some that are a little newer than that. But like I said, the newer ones don't really rent for any more than the older ones do if they're fixed up. So,
Is that what they call it, the red tag?
well, it's an FHA tag that's on there, and what it does, it's got numbers on it, and when the mobile home is set up, that number is registered. And so like when you go to make, like if Dolores buys a double wide you can get financing on. If they're not real old, you can get financing if it has that tag on there and that number on there. They can look that number up, and it gives the history of where all that mobile home has been. If it's been right there on that lot originally and it's still there, or if it's been moved 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And if you finance a double wide, it has to have certain kind of foundation around it, or sitting on it, certain kind of piers, and tied down a certain way. There's stipulations that it has to meet to go FHA financing. Conventional is a little bit less cumbersome, but it still has to be done a certain way to get financing on it.
Cash is the
So
way to
cash
go.
is the way to go, and you're going to get your better price by paying cash. Because if people got to go and you offer them cash and there's no sweating getting a loan, they'll take less. We've bought some, and when I go to the car, I would tell my husband, I said, I can't believe you offered them that little money and they took it. And he's like, well, do you want to go back and give them some more? I'm like, no, that's good. It's just, and you don't want to take advantage of people. At the same time, I'm in it to make a profit. And the bottom line is you're helping them out, because they can't get rid of it. If nobody can get financing for it. They have to sell it cash, and investors are not going to pay the going rate. You can't, because you got repairs and upkeep and all that to do to it. So, yes.
How do you find your mobile homes? And my second question is there some kind of formula you use to value what you're paying and then how much money you're having to put in to know if it's a good deal or not?
No, I don't want to have $60,000 in a single wide mobile home. And so I guess the formula. Did you want to answer?
I was going to say, the last time we figured it up, we averaged about $9,800 a purchase just for the mobile home itself. We try to stay in that range somewhere around $10,000. And then we put about 15 with it to buy a lot usually and develop the lot.
I like to not have more than probably $35,000 or $40,000 in one. It's kind of just drive around looking. I mean, you can look in the thrifty nickel. The best place to find them is in mobile home parks, because like I said, when people get ready to go, they don't have the money to move them, and they can't just leave them there. They got to do something with them. If they vacate, if they left, they would just probably be responsible even still for the lot rent, because the unit's still sitting there.
Well, do you know anything out here that they won't let you take them from their lot in the mobile home park?
No, if you buy them, they're yours. They're not the property of the park.
Over in Texas,
Really?
yeah, the people were complaining because they could not move their trailer on that lot. They were
Never
bound-
heard of that.
They were bound to stay in that park. They could not move them out.
That's a new one. I've not heard that. I don't know. I don't know. The people may have signed some type of agreement when they put it in there that if you're moving, we're keeping it. Yeah.
What's been in the paper, what's been in
Yeah, in the small print they say.
could not, they could not move those trailers out
Mhm.
at all.
Wow.
Prohibited from taking them out.
Yes.
So once you find a mobile home
Mhm.
and you pay for it, how does once you how do you move it? I guess find a lot and then get the hookup and everything like that. Do you find lots that already have hookups?
We have bought some lots that have hookups and some that don't. If they don't, you just have to calculate that into your cost as to what it's going to cost you to get it done. I would have my lot secured and have all that lined out before I find the mobile home, because if you find it in a park, you can probably, even parks that don't allow you to rent in there, as far as putting a tenant in there, they probably would let you leave it there for, a month or two, as long as you pay the lot rent. They just can't rent it out. So every month it sits there not rented, you're losing, rent money. So I would have all that stuff lined out before I bought the mobile home, just so you'd know where to put it.
Excuse me, piggybacking on what he said
Mhm.
about that, what if you do have a lot that does not have the hookups? How much would it cost to have those the accoutrements added to the lot
Mhm.
for the mobile home placement?
Well, it probably is going to depend on how close those services are for you to tie into. There again, I would just get, and different plumbing companies charge different things, so I would get bids, just get bids on what it would cost you to run it. But I would say, Grant?
I'm just gonna say, we've done it more than several different ways, and you have to bore up the street to do the sewer, the water, one or the other, because you're on different sides of the street. We've had to bore the street, and so your costs can run up high depending on which side the sewer is on, the water is on. Our last few years, what we figured out is the very smartest thing to do, is save all of you a lot of trouble, is find the mobile home on the lot, plumbed, skirted, and ready to go. You just go and remodel it. Don't try to fool with all that development. I've done a bunch of that. I have a history of that, housing and stuff and flipping, but it's much better on this, because these things are just cash cows, and you might as well start off quick as you can making money. I was just running some numbers here. If you spent $9,600 for traveling, put about $15,000 into development, you'd have about 24,600 or something like that. If you divide that into that, it's about 30 months is paid for. And so if you ever use a financial calculator, if you try to calculate that, it'll run off the end. Your ROI is real high. And I think that's what everybody's looking for, is return on investment. And these things are unbelievable. And it seems like the worst thing in the market, like you said, you don't pay any taxes on it, the amount of anything. The insurance is high for $1,000, but you don't pay me $1,000 on it. We just keep ours at $8,000 as long as we can go. Because we fix everything on it. And so if hurricane takes it away, we'll just buy another one. Once you get the $8,000, add a little bit to it, put another one on there. It's really a runaway deal.
Yeah.
It runs off the chart. We bought this down here in Greenwood recently. It's out of the city limits, but it's in a mobile home subdivision. We paid $11,500. We may put, 10 or 15 in. So if you do those numbers, in 2 or 3 years, 18 months, it's paid for it. We'll probably get about $950 out of it. And so it's,
What's the lot go for?
well, we own the property.
Oh, you do?
That's what I'm saying. Let me say that again. When you buy the land, mobile home, all in one piece, all set up, somebody moved out, you come in and renovate it, before you go. We renovate them pretty nice. We do all the work ourselves. I'm a carpenter, and a plumber, and an electrician, and all in one. And, we don't tell everybody that. Just watch it. We just do it all. So you can go in there and do that, but you want to own the property. You don't want to rent the property. We started out that way, like I started off. I had a CPA office, like the gentleman a while ago. You go rent an office, you get out of school, and you build it up, and you buy a place, or you build something. Same thing here. We just went to the mobile home park, bought the thing sitting on there, and we had to find a park to let us keep them there. Most parks won't let you keep the unit in there. The owner's not in it. This park would. And so once we built it up, we got the business rolling in 2 or 3 years, we started buying lots. It's cheaper than us than to go into a mobile home, buy mobile home.
Yeah, I didn't know that the mobile home parks, they actually sell the plot.
No, no, you're talking about a mobile home subdivision, just like buying a house. In other words, you go buy a house, the ground goes with it. Well, you go buy a mobile home, you buy one that you're buying the ground too. You don't buy a mobile home park. There's mobile home subdivisions. This is not in Greenwood, this is on the side of the city limits, the west side. We got some branches up there, they're all out of the city limits, but they have city utilities out there. It's called community utilities, what they call them, they bring water and sewer in. And this lady here may own the water system, and we pay her every month. She's usually buying the tree for it. Most of them are, they have deep wells, how it works. That's just kind of a single wide versus double wide. Doris buys high dollar stuff, nice stuff. When we buy these single wides are cheap to get into. You don't have much money. You soon have all your money back. Returns high. And we have one double wide someone gave to us along was on some state property, the guy ran the thing, knew me. He said, we just need to get rid of it. When they got title to it, they just gave it to us. We spent maybe 10,000 on it, and just had a mobile home there. The only reason we have one double wide, but he rents for $9.95. The rest of them rent for $800. So it's not, by the time you move a double wide, it's over twice the amount of money you use a single wide. You spend all that money, and because they got to put it back together. It was two pieces they put together. So there's a lot more money involved. In single wide, it's so much cheaper, so much easier on your pocketbook and your nerves to deal with it, and put it together and go on with it. So it's a better scheme for us because we're looking for cash. And we're not working on appreciating. I used to be in real estate, rental projects, single family homes that I had, and you had mortgages, and you had leverage. The bottom falls out, which it did in the middle '80s, and I was in the middle of the business then. And this little old lady down the street, Main Minutes to Disco, had properties. Hers was all paid for, and mine weren't. I like to drown in debt. Thank God I got out of it. But she just lowered her rents and kept going. She was very happy. So that's what made us switch over to mobile homes from single family houses. That's just a tip. She might be interested or might not be. Yeah, it's just easy. And if the whole thing falls apart, you don't have any money anymore in 2 or 3 years. It's just a free deal. It's almost like free real estate in a way. You kind of look at it to me sometimes. We're talking about repairing them. Sure, go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious. Y'all have some in Greenwood, Blanchard. Do you feel like you have to travel a lot? I mean, you have a handyman that takes care of
I'll be the handyman.
how they're really. Well, do you find it difficult though, because they're so in the country and spread out? I mean, how do you
Well, I got a
manage your time?
16-foot trailer. I got every tool known to man and pneumatic tools and all. I just pull the trailer up there and plug it in, and we just work on it until it gets done. We just knock it out.
Yeah.
And when we do such a good job, I have a leaking faucet. Most of the time I just snatch it out, put a new one in. I don't put mobile home stuff in. I put home quality stuff in there. I put home quality molding in there and hold it up there. They put cheap molding when they build them. I rip that stuff off and but it protects your sheetrock. It protects the windows. We put new windows in sometimes. This one we're doing out here, we just ordered new windows, custom fit for $1,500.
So I guess my question is, you don't mind the travel of 30 minutes to Greenwood and Blanchard?
I don't like it, but I do it.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
the-
I go out there, I mean, we may go a year or two and not even hear from them, except the check hits the mailbox. Or they may have some little leak, or they trip a breaker or something like that. Yeah, you gotta run out there and do it,
But that's the thing, if you keep them in good repair, we hardly ever work on them while somebody's living there because nothing just pretty much doesn't go wrong unless the air conditioner or something goes out and that type thing. So it's really not an issue.
If I had my most brothers, I'd have one big part. But at my age, when I started doing this, I didn't want to get any debt. And so, and not that I'm that old, I just don't want to be in debt. I don't like debt. I believe in Dave Ramsey's program. So that's my deal. And so I didn't want to have any debt. If you buy a mobile home park ragged and had to fix it up, or you buy one in first class, you're going to spend a lot of money. Those suckers are high dollar, real high dollar, if you're looking for them. And I found some ragged ones when we come close, but just, I didn't want to pull the trigger on it. And we decided this is a better plan for us. It's a good question though, because I don't like the driving so much, but we try to take good enough care of them, we don't have to go very much. And when they're empty, when they go empty about every year and a half, 2 years, we go through everything. And usually they hold up very well during that period of time. It's kind of good, it rotates every 2 years, because you go in and fix up everything.
And you know, when you
Don't
think
put
about it,
in them anymore.
everybody's got their rent properties are all over. Very few people have their rent properties all in one area. You know, you're kind of all over town. So, you know, and buying them in a mobile home park is actually a good way to get started because it's a cheap way to get in, and you can kind of get your feet wet and see what you want to do. And if you keep them up, the ones that we've sold in the park, we've sold them for more than what we bought them for, and we might have had them 10 years. So, you know, it's a pretty good deal. Yeah. So, any more questions? All right, Ms. Dolores.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.